Coming of Age was one of the last songs that we finished for the record, and it was kind of a song that came out of a jam session with us in the studio, and it's kind of, you know, some songs, they get finished in like a couple hours, some songs take like a while, and this was one of those songs that it was kind of like every couple days we would start recording, we'd work on a finished song, and then we'd come back to it, we'd do something to it, put it down, go back to like finished songs, work, pick it up again a couple days later, and it just kind of over time it started to take shape and actually become a real song. And so it was just an interesting thing watching that evolve until finally that chorus vocal came together and the concept came together, and then I think we kind of looked at each other, we're like, oh, you know, I think this is actually going to make the record. Well, it's been the one thing that's been taking up a lot of my thought, because I just find it fascinating that we have this technology that's brand new to humanity, that we don't really know the long-term effects of how interweaving this into our everyday life is going to affect us as a whole. And kind of what I've found, the more that I've like looked at kind of social media, I think for as many positive things that it's brought, like immediate news, the ability within like an emergency to be able to gather supplies and like be a communicator, that most people just use it for connection. And for me, I feel like it's kind of a cheap version of the real thing. And I feel like people, more and more kids are kind of now getting more used to communicating through a glass screen than they are face to face. And that worries me a little bit, just in terms of how people are communicating, how people are confronting problems, and I guess just getting used to being able to kind of hold their own space without having to have a screen kind of dividing them. It's Supermodel is really about, I just think that, I feel like we're living in a supermodel culture. I think that we're, through technology and through social media, we're able to create an identity online that shows people the face that we want them to see, rather than necessarily who they actually are. And I just find that to be a really fascinating thing, that we're able to curate our image, and how clever we are on Twitter, how like artistic we are on Instagram. You know, we can take 1,000 selfies and pick the best one and say, this is what I look like, you know, this is my best angle, and then act like we don't, you know, like, no man, I just like woke up like that, you know, like the Beyonce song, I woke up like this. You know that record? Good record. The record's not an angry record. I think you know, some of the song, like Beginner's Guide to Destroying the Moon, when I listened to that, I was definitely in a moment when I wrote that song. But I think the record really is kind of, it's an emotional ride through a lot of different feelings. Anger being one of them, but not the overall theme of the record.
One of the songs that I kind of find in my head a lot, or I guess that means a lot to me, is Goats and Trees. It's a more like, you know, stripped down song on the record. It kind of just snuck up on me after we'd finished the recording of it, and yeah, it's kind of like become my favorite. I think we're all in a different boat for this song.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites on the album is a song called The Truth, and it's actually the most electronically based song on the album, so it's interesting because it kind of stands out as a little bit different on this record, because this record's a little bit more organic and guitar driven, and this song's more synth driven, but it's, I mean, really powerful song.
This record was really personal for me. Just lyrically, it was the most vulnerable I've ever been, and I think that for some of these songs, you know, I really tried to block out the idea that people were going to hear them in order to have the courage to be able to expose more of myself. But when it came down to actually releasing the music and putting the songs on the record, The Truth being the song where I kind of repeatedly over a period of months called these guys up, and I'd just be like, guys, we can't put this song on the record, man. We can't put the song on the record. Like, Truth cannot go on. And I'd be like, and they'd be like, what, really? Like, I like that. Like, I really think that song should go on the record. And then they would kind of like talk me off the ledge. And I'd be like, all right. And then like a month later, I'd call them up again. I'd be like, guys, dude, I know we've talked about this before, but I really don't think this song should go on the record.
It'd be like 2 days later. I think the vulnerability to that song, and maybe is what I was always like attracted to. And coming from him, I could see why it would be a little bit more hesitant to do it. But for me, like listening to it, that's what I think evoked so much greatness about it. You know, that's why I was so excited to, or tried to coax them to keep it on. You know?
But it's been interesting for me because, like, just even through this process, as people are starting to hear the record for the first time, that's a song that keeps coming up in conversation. And so it's kind of, I learned a bit of a lesson kind of through that process, you know, that like, because in the middle of it, it felt like my instincts were right, like no, we got to take this off the record. But I guess, you know, for me, it was kind of interesting to learn kind of the difference between being too close to something to really have perspective on what it is.
Paul is an amazing producer. We worked with him on a few tracks on Torches and had a really great experience the first time around with him. Just his energy and vibe in the studio was one that we were just really drawn to work with him again. And
I feel like the record was like half, like it was like 50% kind of like leaning back to back, like tackling this thing together, and then half of it was like a boxing match, you know?
Which I think can be a good thing. I mean, it definitely brings the best to the surface when there's a little bit of tension, you know?
Yeah, you know, it was hard. It's always, I feel like it's always hard, like, it's like, you know, picking like who's gonna play on your baseball team with all of your best friends. You're just like you don't really want to leave anybody out, you know, but only 11 guys can be on the pitch, you know? How many guys play on a baseball team, by the way? Sorry, 9? I was thinking about soccer first time. 11 guys on the pitch. I was like, wow, that's a lot of baseball players.
You're more of a soccer player than the baseball player.
I like to play with 11. I like to play with 5 fielders.